We are in the middle of Torah Yud Zayin in Likutey Moharan called VaYehi Merikim Sakehem, and we're in the middle of part 5, Od Hey, in this Torah. And Rabbi Nachman is explaining to us the formula of how to develop more fear and love of Hashem. Rabbi Nachman explains to us that it's possible to receive, to experience more fear and love in Hashem unless we are connected to the tzaddik and we are open to the light of the tzaddik, because the tzaddik draws to us the consciousness and the awareness that will affect and cause us to feel these emotions, these feelings of awe and love of Hashem. What is the awareness and what's the consciousness that the tzaddik draws to us, brings to us? The light of the tzaddik brings to us the awareness of why Hashem created the world, the intention that Hashem had in creating the world, the purpose that Hashem has in creating every part of everything in the world, every part of the world, every person in the world, and every part of every person, and every part of every animal, and every part of every plant in the world. So in general, why Hashem created the world, and specifically, why did Hashem create each and every detail in the world? The tzaddik brings to awareness the answer to that question. What is the purpose? And what is that he brings to awareness? What's that purpose that he brings, the purpose that Hashem has in creating the world that the tzaddik brings to awareness? It's the pride that Hashem prides himself with the Jewish people. Because that's the reason why Hashem created the world. Hashem created the world for this pride that he prides himself with the Jewish people in general, and with each individual in the Jewish people, and with each individual energy, shape, form, detail, characteristic in each individual of the Jewish people. And these are corresponding to each other, meaning that every detail in the world is existing, and Hashem created it because of a specific detail, an individual specific detail of a specific point of pride that Hashem prides himself with a certain individual in the Jewish people. And when the tzaddik brings us to consciousness, when he brings us to our awareness, when we receive this awareness through the tzaddik, so we experience an awe of Hashem, the same similar awe that people experience when the king is when the king shows himself to his country, to the city, to his country, to his kingdom in his royal clothing, and people experience a tremendous awe. And that's similar, that's comparable, okay? It's comparable to this awe that we are experiencing when the tzaddik brings to our awareness the pride that Hashem prides himself in the Jewish people. The pride that Hashem prides himself is like these glorious clothing, the clothing of a king, the royal clothing of splendor of the king, that he is presented, that is surrounded, that he is priding himself by wearing these royal clothing, these royal clothes. And when we come to more awareness, when we come to recognize this pride that Hashem prides himself, the Jewish people, that pride is like the clothing that Hashem, so to speak, is now showing himself through these clothing, and Hashem is priding himself in this royal clothing, because we are the clothing of the king. We are the way through which the king presents himself in the world, shows himself in the world. We are the representation of Hashem in this world. Okay, we are the representation of the king in this world. We are the way that the king shows himself to his kingdom. We are the clothing, the clothing of tiferet, of splendor of Hashem. And then when the king is shown and experienced and recognized in his clothing of glory, his clothing of splendor, the royal clothing through which we feel this tremendous awe, so the king, so to speak, experiences tremendous accomplishments, fulfillment and fulfillment of the purpose for which he created the world. And so he shows his love to his subjects, and whatever we ask from him, he gives to us. And that's the love and the fear, the love and the awe of Hashem that we experience through this awareness that the tzaddik is bringing to us. When we are able to receive the light of the tzaddik, we are able to receive in this light, through this light, this state of consciousness, this state of awareness, this recognition of Hashem, that brings us to experience more awe and more love of a Kadosh Baruch. So now we have to understand what is usually blocking a person from experiencing the light of the tzaddik, from experiencing this awareness. And Rabbi Nachman explains that this comes from achirut ha'ma'asim or chassidut ha'sechel. It comes from inappropriate ways of living, right? Corrupted ways of living. When a person is living in a way that is completely disconnected from his higher self, and that causes that the consciousness of the person is lost. The expanded consciousness, the light of the consciousness of the higher self, the expanded consciousness, the divine consciousness is lost. It's corrupted and it's lost, and therefore, in its place, a person is experiencing foolishness, what's called ksilut hasechel, that state of chaotic thinking, of incoherent thinking and incoherent consciousness. Okay? And so how do we fix that? How do we remove those blocks? And Rabbi Nachman says it comes from completing and perfecting the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach is the Malchut, the altar. And when we complete and perfect the Mizbeach, so those forces of evil, those energies of corruption, those energies of concealment and sheker that were causing this person, that may cause a person to experience foolishness, that may cause a person to experience this fragmentation, this disconnect, and from the higher self. When the Mizbeach, when the Malchut is completed and perfected, so then those forces of concealment, of obscurity, are canceled out. They're subdued and eliminated. And Rabbi Nachman says that we may complete the Mizbeach by eating with a certain awe and a certain respect of holiness, recognizing that when we are eating our meal, we are at the table of Hashem, and this is the table that is set before Hashem, like the pasuk says, Zah shulchan shel lifnei Hashem. And then we eat in order to feed our soul, rather than eating just to satisfy our animal desires. And just that intention and that awe of sitting at the table of Hashem, eating from the food of the king that Hashem provided for me, that intention and that awareness itself completes the Mizbeach, perfects this table in a state of complete holiness, of wholeness. And that itself is what will subdue and eliminate those forces that seek to take apart the Mizbeach. They seek to steal life energy from the Mizbeach. And because now they have not stolen any of that energy from the Mizbeach is complete and perfected. So now they have lost their life energy, their life source, and they have been eliminated through this. But if they did steal those parcels of life energy from the Mizbeach, if they did take that away, and then they are strengthened and empowered to overcome that divine consciousness represented by the Mizbeach, and then they are able to overpower a person and bring him to experience that foolishness, that that chaotic thinking, that incoherent consciousness, that lack of holy consciousness that we were speaking about. And so the second way that Rabbi Nachman is now explaining to us how to complete the Mizbeach, if we bring the Mizbeach to its state of perfection, of wholeness, and she is in her higher state, in her highest state, in her perfected state, and she is safe from those forces of obscurity, forces of evil and concealment, then we are completing the consciousness. But Rabbi Nachman explains that another way of completing the Mizbeach, fixing the Mizbeach in this state of perfection, is by returning all of those souls, those holy souls that are part of the Malchut, part of the Mizbeach, that were stolen away from her. They were stolen away from her, and they are represented by those Jewish souls lost among the 70 nations. And so by bringing those souls back and finding a way to free those Jewish souls, those holy souls, from their dark place in the 70 nations, and bringing them back to Judaism, bringing them back to the Torah, bringing them back to recognizing and acknowledging Hashem as the King, which is called Ol Malchut Shamayim, completing the Malchut of Hashem, completing the Mizbeach. This completes, perfects the Mizbeach, and that itself will subdue and eliminate those forces of evil, those forces of obscurity and concealment, because now they no longer have those holy souls that were giving them, that were nourishing them. They were able to be nourished with those energy centers, right? The tremendous energy in those holy souls. And so how can we allow those Jewish souls to be freed from their dark place in the 70 nations? That's what Rabbi Nachman is explaining to us now in Od Hey. And Rabbi Nachman says, how is it possible for them to be freed? How is it possible for them to even hear about Judaism if they are so far in the 70 nations, so far in such an environment, being brought up in a certain way with certain belief systems and education? How could they, from that place, hear about Judaism, hear about the Torah, and be open to Judaism? How could they ever be open to hearing about the Torah and hearing about Hashem in a way that will actually allow them to pursue it? So Rabbi Nachman introduces this idea from Mishlei, from Shlomo HaMelech, Hon Yosif Re'im Rabim, that money, wealth, increases a lot of friends. What does that mean? Rabbi Nachman explains on a deeper level, that means that when a person gives charity to many, many, many people, and the more charity you give, the more people you give charity to, the more it will have this effect of what? Charity has the effect of causing a friendly energy, causing the space in between the two people where the charity was, from where the charity was given over from one person to the other. Now in between these two people, there is a friendly energy. There is an energy of peace. There's an energy of love. There's an energy of unity. Okay, when one person doesn't want to give to the other person, so then kind of like they're turning their backs to each other, and there's a separateness in between them. But when there is tzedakah, when there's charity that is being transmitted from one person to the other, so in between these two people, the space in between these two people is now filled with this friendly, peaceful energy of unity, of oneness. And so that's the wealth, the money that increases friendship or friends. It increases this friend energy. And so Rabbi Nachman says that if you give charity to more people, so then the space of this friendly energy is expanded accordingly, right? According to how many people you're giving this charity to. Now imagine if you can give charity to 1 million people. So then you have a much, much greater space than if you gave charity to 1,000 people. And so to 1 million people, the space is so tremendous and so huge, and all that space is now filled with this friendly energy. And so you're expanding this friendly space throughout the world. Now imagine if you can give charity to 1 billion people. So then even more so, that space of friendly energy is expanded exponentially. And so Rabbi Nachman says, how is it possible for us to give charity to 1 billion people? Or how is it possible for us to give charity to the whole world? Is that possible? Is there a way to do that? Because if we would be able to do that, then we would cause this friendly energy to spread throughout the whole world, and there would be peaceful energy throughout the whole world. And so Rabbi Nachman says there's a way of doing that. If you give charity to a Talmid Chacham, to someone who devoted himself to studying Torah and increasing his Torah knowledge and teaching Torah knowledge to others, such a person has a soul that is a collective soul. Okay, his soul includes many, 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 many souls in one person. And so if you give charity to this one person, to this Talmid Chacham, it's as if you gave charity to 1 billion people. Or it could be, it's as if you gave charity to the whole world. There's a certain Talmid Chacham, there's a certain tzaddik that his consciousness and his soul is the foundation of the whole world. It's called tzaddik yesod olam. Okay? And so if you gave charity to this person, then it's as if you gave charity to everyone in the whole world. The whole world is now filled with this friendly energy. Now, what's the significance of this friendly energy? What's so important about this friendly energy? So that's what Rabbi Nachman is explaining to us now. He says, how is it possible for someone, this Jewish soul who grew up as an idol worshiper, who grew up among a nation of idol worshippers in other strange religions, right, in other religions, how could he ever have a hope to find the belief system of the Jews, to find the Torah's belief system, and to return to it, to seek it? How is that ever possible? There's such opposites. They're so far from each other. How could he hear about it? And how could he hear about it in a way that he will recognize its significance and be drawn to it and attracted to it and return to it? How is it ever possible? So Rabbi Nachman explains that when you have two people and one person wants to transmit a message to the other person, but the other person is blocking himself. It could be they're in anger, they have anger. It could be they're in a disagreement, right? And the other person is blocking himself. He doesn't want to hear anything from this first person, but the first person has an important message. It could be that his message is an apology, maybe, right? But this other person doesn't want to hear anything from this person. What is he going to do? So the way that we do it is we send a letter. If you send a letter, there's a much better chance that the other person, without seeing the prejudices that he has against the person that he's against, he's only seeing the words in the letter. It could be that he read those words and those words will resonate and he'll be more open to them than if he were hearing those words directly from this other person that he is blocked from hearing anything from that person, right? אך כמו כשאחד רחוק מאוד מחברו ואי אפשר לדבר אליו שישמע, צריך לכתוב לו כתב, כן צריך לשלוח בחינת כתב להם עד שיוכלו לשמוע אף שהם רחוקים. Just like when you have one person that's very far from his friend, right, and you can't speak to him, you can't hear, right? So he has to write him a letter. So Rabbi Nachman says this is before they had telephones, okay, before they had phones, if you can't speak to a person because he's too far to hear your message, so it could be that he's emotionally blocking himself from hearing your message, which is the way that I explained it, or it could be that just physically they're too far from each other, and therefore he can't hear the message that is being said to him because he's so far from the other person. So the way to do it is to send a letter, and with a letter, the letter can be sent to the other side of the world, right? And so he sends him a letter. In the same way, says Rabbi Nachman, ken tzarich lishloch bechinat kitav lahem ad sheyochlu lishma av shehem meruchakim. In the same way, likewise, he says, we can send a letter to these people, to these souls, okay, send a letter to those souls that are lost among the 70 nations, that even though they're so distant from us by way of the letter, even though they're too far to actually hear, by way of the letter, they can see the words, and there's a chance that those words will resonate by them, right? Because when it comes to hearing, if you're too far from a person, you can't hear what they're trying to say, because the way that sound travels, it travels through the air. It travels through the air, that one sound vibration, it reverberates and causes another sound vibration. It's like a wave, and one wave causes the next wave until it reaches the ears of the one that's hearing. But he has to be close enough for that to happen in between, in the atmosphere. He has to be close enough for that to happen. If he's too far, or if there's a wall in between, and right, there's something that's blocking the way and interference, then he won't be able to hear. And so that's why you need to send what is written. There's something else that you can do. if you remove any interference in between the one who is speaking and the one that is listening, so even a pin that is dropping can be heard, right? When you have a completely silent hall, even a pin can be, that's the expression, a pin, you could hear a pin drop, right? And so if we remove any interference and interfering energy throughout the world, in between the tzaddik, in between the source of the Torah, and those Jewish souls lost among the 70 nations, then it could be that they will hear and they will receive what is written, the truth that is written in the Torah. That's what Rabbi Nachman says here. ועל כן כשהאוויר נח וזך וצלול, אזי כשמדבר אחד שיכול לדבר, אזי נשמע דיבור למרחוק כמו שרואים בחוש. אבל כשיש רוח סערה, אזי אי אפשר לחברו לשמוע, כי הרוח מבלבל ומפריד חלקי האווירים ונתפזרים, עד שאי אפשר לחברו לשמוע אפילו הכל, מכל שכן הדיבור בעצמו. Rabbi Nachman says, if there is a stormy wind in between, in the atmosphere, right? So then that causes an interference, and that confuses and separates the different parts of the air that are supposed to allow the sound waves to travel so that someone can hear what you are saying. And that's why when there's a stormy wind, when there's really, really great storm, even if you're a few meters away from your friend, you still can't hear what he's saying. Because that's confusing. That interference in the atmosphere is confusing the air and not allowing those sound waves, those sound vibrations to travel. Even though you could be just a couple meters away. And it could be, says Rabbi Nachman, that the interference is so great that not only can you not hear the actual words what the person is saying, but sometimes the interference is so great you can't even hear the voice, can't even hear that the person is trying to say something. Okay, that's how bad the storm could be. But says Rabbi Nachman, ועל ידי צדקה הוא לוקח נפשות, כי לוקח לעצמו רעים ואוהבים, כמו שאמר מונבז, אבותיי גנזו ממון, ואני גנזתי נפשות. נמצא שכל מה שנותן צדקה ליותר אנשים, על ידי זה קונה לו רעים יותר. So says Rabbi Nachman, but when you give tzedakah, when you give charity, you increase your friends. What does it mean you increase your friends? All those people that you give charity to become your friends. And what does it mean that they become your friends? It means that there is a friendly energy binding and connecting those two people. And so the more people you give charity to, the more people become your friends, and the more of this friendly energy is spread in greater ways, expanded in greater ways, connecting and binding more and more people, and filling the world with that friendship. And so that's why Rabbi Nachman says when you give tzedakah, you are acquiring souls. What does it mean you're acquiring souls? You are acquiring friends. Those people are now bought, so to speak. Those are bought friends. As the Mishnah in Masechet Avot says. Buy for yourself a companion, buy for yourself a friend. Okay, how do you do that? Well, when you give tzedakah, when you give charity to someone, you've bought a friend, because that's what the deeper meaning in the pasuk in Mishlei, Hon Yosif Re'im Rabim, that money increases friends. Okay, and Rabbi Nachman also brings this Gemara in Masechet Baba Batra that Munbaz, he says that Munbaz, the king, he had a lot of, he had inherited tremendous wealth. Okay, but he took that wealth and he gave it to tzedakah, he gave it to charity. And so he said that my forefathers, my ancestors, they would put in the treasury money. They stored a lot of money away in the treasury. But I stored souls, because he bought souls with that charity. When he used the money for charity, he bought souls. He bought friends. He bought those bonds. And so says Rabbi Nachman, the more people you give charity to, the more friends you have acquired. The more friends you have acquired, the more you have spread, the more that friendly energy has spread and expanded. ועל ידי זאת האהבה שקונה על ידי הצדקה, על ידי זה נזדכך האוויר. בכל מה שנותנים ליותר אנשים צדקה, וקונה אהבה עם יותר אנשים, על ידי זה נתרבה יותר האוויר הנח והזך, כי אהבה היא ידבק ודרוכה ברוחה. דהיינו רוח האוהב ורוח הנאהב, שזה בחינת אוויר הנח, שרוחם נחים זה מזה. כי אין רוח רע שהוא שנאה שיפריד ביניהם. So says Rabbi Nachman, that through this love that you have acquired through the tzedakah, the friends that you have acquired, it's love that you have acquired. Now those people love you. Okay, now that you have given them that tzedakah, that charity, they love you. And so you acquired love. And through that love that you have acquired, the atmosphere, the air is purified. And the more people that you gave charity to, the more love you have acquired. Now there are more people that are loving you. Okay, and through that increase of love, there's love in the air, yeah, that causes the air and the atmosphere to be more tranquil, more pure, less interference. Okay, because, says Rabbi Nachman, this love energy is a binding energy. It's an energy that binds and unites and combines one spirit with another spirit, one energy with another energy. What's the spiritual glue? It's love. Okay, and so the spirit of the one who is loving is connected and bound with the spirit of the one who is loved, and through that love energy. And that itself, that is in itself the concept of the peaceful, tranquil atmosphere, the peaceful air. Okay, why is it peaceful? Because each one of these two people on either side are now at peace with each other. Love is the same as being at peace with each other. They are okay with each other. They are loving each other. They are accepting each other. Okay, and so there is this peace. Each one of them is at peace with each other, is loving each other, and that is what causes the air in between them to be void of any interference, void of any arguments, void of any separation, to be tranquil, to be pure. Because now that they're experiencing love toward each other and peace, they're at peace with each other, so now there is no hatred. Hatred would be an interfering energy. There is no ruach ra'ah, says Rabbi Nachman. There's no evil spirit. That would be an interfering energy. Those energies are energies of argument, of separation, and they separate between people. But because these two people are now at peace with each other, and they are experiencing love toward each other, so there is no longer those energies, those interfering energies. And we'll see the continuation, B'ezrat Hashem, of this in the next year.